Being underestimated is an advantage because it gives you the rare opportunity to grow without pressure, without noise, and without a spotlight exposing every move you make. When people look at you and assume you are small, unprepared, or incapable, what they don't realize is that they are handing you freedom to study, to practice, to fail in private, to experiment without scrutiny, and to evolve without anyone tracking your progress. There is a certain power in being overlooked because the world tends to watch the loudest people, not the quietest ones. And while the loud ones are performing for attention, the quiet ones are preparing for transformation. Being underestimated means no one is standing over your shoulder waiting for results. No critics, no pressure, no expectations that box you in. You move with your own timing, your own rhythm, your own fire. It allows you to build yourself from the inside out, shaping your character before your reputation, sharpening your skills before anyone knows to watch your hands, strengthening your mind before the world ever hears your voice. And that kind of growth, silent, patient, consistent, becomes a weapon. See, when people dismiss you, they stop studying you, they stop paying attention, they stop anticipating what you might become. And that creates the perfect opening for you to rise. They think they have you figured out, but their version of you is outdated, inaccurate, and incomplete because it was based on the surface, and the surface never tells the whole story. You are doing the kind of work that can only happen underground, the kind of development roots go through before a tree ever breaks the soil. Nobody respects the root, but everybody admires the branches, and yet it's the root that makes the whole thing possible. So when you are underestimated, you become that root. You grow in depth, not in display. You grow in strength, not in noise. And when the day comes that you finally push upward, finally reveal who you become, finally show the world what you've been building, the shock you create carries more impact than if you had been recognized from the start. Because nothing hits harder than a breakthrough no one saw coming. But here's the key. You have to embrace the advantage. It only works if you refuse to internalize the doubt that others project onto you. Being underestimated becomes deadly only when you start underestimating yourself. If you treat their low expectations as truth instead of noise, then the advantage collapses. You must learn to hear every dismissal as a challenge, every doubt as fuel, every underestimation as confirmation that you are being given space to grow without distraction. You must learn to say, "Good, keep underestimating me. You're giving me room to evolve." Because while they are busy celebrating their assumptions, you are busy building your reality. While they are talking, you are training. While they are laughing, you are learning. While they are ignoring you, you are improving. And improvement without interruption creates mastery. Mastery creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum creates change. And change, real, undeniable change, forces the world to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about you. That is the moment when being underestimated turns into being unstoppable. It's not about proving them wrong, it's about becoming so strong, so skilled, so prepared that their opinions lose power altogether. When you use underestimation as motivation, you stop living in the shadow of people's expectations and start living in the light of your own potential. You understand that your value was never something they had the authority to determine. You understand that your journey is not a performance for their approval. You understand that their doubt is merely the silence you needed to get your work done. And by the time they realize their mistake, it's too late. The growth has happened. The transformation is complete. And you are standing in a place they never imagined you would reach, not because you shouted to be seen, but because you worked until they had no choice but to notice. That is the advantage. That is the gift. That is the quiet power of being underestimated. Preparation is done in the shadows because the foundation of every great achievement is built long before the world ever gets to witness it, and most of that work happens away from applause, away from validation, away from the comfort of being seen. When you are in the shadows, you are free from the pressure of performing. You are not obligated to impress anyone. You don't have to explain yourself, defend your dreams, or justify your pace. You are allowed to be a beginner, allowed to make mistakes, allowed to stumble without being judged for every imperfect step. And that freedom is where real growth thrives. In the shadows, you learn the truth about yourself, what you want, what you fear, what you struggle with, and what you are truly capable of. You confront weaknesses without shame and strengthen them without distraction. You study, refine, and repeat until the things that once felt impossible begin to feel natural. Shadows are where discipline is born, because no one is watching to clap for you, and so every action is driven by internal desire instead of external approval. That kind of discipline lasts longer, cuts deeper, and carries you further than any applause ever will. Preparation in the shadows is slow, deliberate, and often uncomfortable. It requires patience, honesty, and a relentless commitment to improvement. It means waking up early when no one will know, staying up late when no one will praise you, working through frustration when the results are invisible, and choosing consistency when quitting would be easier. You build habits brick by brick, decision by decision, sacrifice by sacrifice, and those habits become the structure that supports everything you will one day accomplish. The world loves to admire success, but the world rarely respects the process. They see the performance, but not the rehearsals. They see the breakthrough, but not the breakdowns. They see the final product, but not the 1,000 discarded attempts that shaped it. That is why the shadows are so essential. They allow you to craft your excellence without interference from people who judge too quickly and understand too slowly. In the shadows, you are not rushed. You are not compared. You are not measured by someone else's timeline. You develop at the pace that is right for you. You get to explore, experiment, and discover without ridicule. It is in this quiet, hidden space that you build not only skill but identity. You learn what kind of worker you are when no one is watching. You learn what kind of dreamer you are when no one is cheering. And most importantly, you learn what kind of warrior you are when no one believes in your battle but you. Preparation in the shadows is not glamorous, but it is transformative. It is where your mindset sharpens, where your confidence grows, and where your resilience is forged. Every hour spent training in silence becomes a reservoir of strength you will draw from when the spotlight finally shines on you. Every private struggle becomes a lesson. Every quiet victory becomes a reminder that progress is happening even when it's not visible. And because you have done the work privately, you will show up publicly with a level of composure and mastery that looks effortless to those who never saw the grind. The truth is, people will often assume your success appeared overnight because they never witnessed the preparation. Let them assume. Let them believe it was luck or timing or talent. You will know the reality. It was hours, days, months, and years of invisible work. It was every moment you chose preparation over procrastination, growth over comfort, discipline over distraction. And because your preparation was done in the shadows, you don't crumble when attention comes. You don't panic in the spotlight because you've rehearsed the moment 1,000 times alone. You don't get shaken by doubt because you've already battled your own doubts in silence. That is the power of shadow work. It produces a version of you that is unshakable. When the world finally sees you, they will see strength, but you will know it came from struggle. They will see confidence, but you will know it came from repetition. They will see skill, but you will know it came from hours of unseen labor. The shadows are not a punishment, they are preparation. They are not a setback, they are a setup. They are not evidence that you are behind. They are evidence that you are building something worth revealing. When you understand this, you stop resenting the quiet seasons. You stop craving validation too early. You stop rushing your process just to prove something to people who are not part of your destiny. Instead, you embrace the grind. You honor the invisibility. You recognize that every moment spent away from the spotlight is shaping you into someone capable of standing in it with grace and conviction. And when the time finally comes for you to step forward, you will do so not as a person seeking approval, but as someone who has already earned their place through preparation no one else saw. That is the quiet miracle of working in the shadows. It prepares you for a future only you can see, while the world is still blind to what you're becoming. Success flips the table because it is the undeniable moment when everything you have worked for, sacrificed for, and fought for becomes visible in a way no argument, explanation, or defense ever could. When success arrives, it silences doubt without you having to say a single word. All the judgments people made about you, all the assumptions they clung to, all the limits they tried to place on your life suddenly collapse under the weight of your results. Success is not loud, but it reverberates. It carries authority. It carries truth. It carries a finality that forces the world to acknowledge what they once refused to see. And the beauty of it is that success is rarely born in a straight line. It comes from the missteps, the late nights, the frustrations, the rejections, the quiet rebuilding of your confidence after each setback, the stubbornness to keep going when everything around you told you to quit. Success is the collection of invisible victories that eventually pile high enough to be seen from the outside. And when it finally becomes visible, it overturns the entire narrative that others created about you. People who once dismissed you have to reevaluate their opinions. People who laughed have to swallow their words. People who underestimated you have to confront the truth that they never understood your potential in the first place. It's not that your success is meant to embarrass anyone. It simply reveals the gap between who you are and who they assumed you were. Success flips the table because it shifts power. Before success, you were the quiet one, the doubted one, the underestimated one. People felt secure in their opinions of you. They felt comfortable placing you in a small box. But the moment you elevate, the moment your work manifests in results, the power dynamic shifts. You no longer sit at the table as someone waiting to be accepted. You sit at the table as someone who brings value, someone whose presence changes the atmosphere, someone who no longer needs permission to belong. And that shift is profound. Success flips the table because it proves that the journey matters more than the judgments. It reveals that you didn't need validation to grow, you didn't need approval to progress, and you didn't need applause to become great. What you needed was belief in yourself, consistency in your actions, and dedication to your purpose. And when the outcome of that dedication appears, it is undeniable. People can question your effort, they can question your timing, they can question your choices, but they cannot question results. Results don't argue, they demonstrate, they stand, they speak in a language the world cannot ignore. When success shows up, it affirms every private battle you fought. It justifies every sacrifice that felt invisible. It validates every moment you questioned the path but kept moving anyway. And because success often arrives after a long season of doubt, its impact is magnified. It hits harder. It resonates deeper. It forces people to recognize that what they thought was weakness was actually resilience. What they thought was confusion was actually strategy. And what they thought was silence was actually preparation. Success flips the table because it transforms your identity in the eyes of others. But more importantly, it transforms your identity in your own eyes. You begin to see yourself not as the person others defined, but as the person you built through effort and endurance. You no longer measure yourself by past failures or external opinions. You measure yourself by growth, by breakthroughs, by the undeniable evidence of what you can accomplish when you commit fully. This shift in self-perception is powerful because it changes how you walk into rooms, how you speak, how you dream, and how you demand more from yourself. Success becomes not just a victory, but a new standard. And as your standard rises, so does your influence. See, success doesn't only flip the table for you, it flips the table for anyone who doubted their own potential by watching your journey. Your story becomes a mirror, reflecting back the truth that being underestimated is not the end of the narrative, but the beginning of a comeback. You become proof that quiet seasons have purpose, that obscurity is temporary, and that growth is happening even when no one celebrates it. When you rise, you don't rise alone. You lift the atmosphere. You show others that it can be done. And that ripple effect is part of why success is so powerful. But success also brings responsibility. When the table is flipped, you must decide what to do with the new position you hold. Success gives you options, but also demands clarity. It gives you visibility, but also requires humility. It gives you influence, but also calls for wisdom. The table is flipped, yes, but what you build on that new table matters just as much as the moment you overturn the old one. You must learn to protect your peace, guard your focus, And remember that the same determination that got you here is the same determination required to stay here. Success is not a finish line, it's a doorway. It opens access to new levels, new challenges, new expectations. And you must step through that doorway with intention. Success flips the table because it turns doubt into respect, silence into recognition, invisibility into presence. It confirms that the journey was worth it, that the struggle had purpose, that the effort had meaning. It is the moment when everything hidden becomes seen, everything questioned becomes answered, and everything underestimated becomes undeniable. And when you sit at the new table, the one you earned, the one you built, the one you flipped into existence, you carry with you the wisdom of where you started and the strength of what you overcame. That is the true power of success. It changes the room, but it also changes you.